Maestro Pancaldi.
Hi, I'm Shane Logan, artist and designer, and you're watching No Enemies Here, Wargaming News.
Thin Red Line Games, less than 60 miles. The battle for Fool the Gap, command, control, communication, and a real plan are the keys to victory. Operational, regimental, battalion units, 5 Ks per hex, 3 hours per turn. GMT, Peloponnesian War, the enhanced edition designed by Mark Herman. From the opening of the Archedemenian War in 431 BC to the fall of Athens in 404, the Peloponnesian War allows you to compete against the man in the mirror as you live through the suicide of Greece. What you get with this game is a 22 by 34 inch mounted map with new art, 2 mounted strategy boards, 8 by 10 with new art, 2 counter sheets, 4 play raids, 1 rulebook, 1 playbook, and 2 D6 dice. Complexity is medium high, solitaire suitability is sky high because it's a solo game. Levian Campaign Series Volume 1, Nevsky, Teutons and Rus in Collision, 1240 to 1242, a game designed by Volko. What you get is a 17 by 22 inch mounted game board, a wooden pawn, 14 wooden Lord cylinders, a small Lord sticker sheet, 50 wooden wedges, 74 wooden bars, 3 sheets of markers, 4 decks of cards, 2 11 by 17 play rate foldouts, 1 8.5 by 11 arts and war deck reference sheet, 2 optional 8.5 by 22 3-panel screen with Russian or Teutonic Lord reference panel, 6-sided dice, a rule book with multiple scenarios, a background playbook. Thanks, Volko. Complexity is medium, solitaire suitability is medium high. Jeff McAleer of the Gaming Gang is unboxing and taking a look at Time of Crisis, the Roman Empire in Turmoil, 235 to 284 AD, a game published by GMT, designed by Ray Farrell and Brad Johnson. The man famously known as Calandale, Enrico Viglino, gives us an intro to Alexander the Great, a 1971 Avalon Hill game designed by Don Greenwood and Gary Gygax. ARDWULF is talking RPGs and wargaming on his live chat stream. And also an unboxing of Aliens of the Imperium for the Traveler customizable card game. The Player's Aid are reviewing Warfighter World War II The Pacific from DVG, also celebrating their 5,000th subscriber and also doing a giveaway, a Distant Plain Insurgency in Afghanistan by Volko and Brian Train, published by GMT. They are also unboxing the French expansion for the Great War from PSC Games. Gimpy's Gal unboxes U-Boat, a game designed by Bartosz Pluta and Artur Sawarowski, published by Phalanx Games. STUKAJOE
Yesterday
was live streaming, trying out his multi-camera angles. GIMPY of the GIMPY Gamer is doing a playthrough of Space Infantry Resurgence, a game designed by Blackwell Hurd and Gottardo Zancani, published by Lock and Load Publishing. You want to know what's happening on the big board? I'll tell you what's happening on the big board. Kevin, CEO and President for Life of the Big Board, is checking out 48th Panzer Corps Counterattack magazine, and also he's shrink ripping less than 60 miles with also a rules overview, plus command and posture notes. This is a game designed by Marco Cimino and Fabrizio Vianello, published by Thin Red Line Games. The OG Devin is hard at work with World at War 85 gameplay, Zweitgangangriff, Part 5, published by Lock and Load Publishing. If you want to learn about tactical, operational, strategic, check out Tim Korchnoi, Bare Bones Wargaming. This video was intended to be a little intro video on the types of warfare, tactical, operation, and strategic, and the, as I see it, 5 types of war games. This is what's written on Tim's channel. Thanks, Tim. Also, Bare Bones is taking a look-see at London's Burning, designed by Ben Knight, published by the Avalon Hill game in 1995. Lock and Load Publishing has GIMPY, talking about mine removal in the Nations at War core rule set. Bonding with Board Games and the Chief is unboxing The Great War, the French Army expansion and French tanks from Plastic Soldier Company, PSC. Dr. History, Cody of the Discriminating Gamer, is taking a look at Donning the Purple, a game designed by Peter Shanke Olsen, published by Tompet Games. Counterproductive Games is having a father and son battle with the game Heroes of Normandy tactical card game. He's also unbagging issue number 12 of Yeah! Magazine, the in-house magazine for Flying Pigs and Tiny Battle Publishing. MAURO FAINA is checking out Lebensraum, The War for Europe, 1941 to 1945, a game designed by Steven Newberg and published by Compass Games. Also, in his Giannizzero, he is talking about card-driven war games. And Mauro also talks about the past convention in Italy in San Marino. BLASTPOP examines Albion, Land of Fairy by SPI Ares Magazine, 1981, designed by James Ritchie. Mo of Mo's Game Table is unboxing a game that everybody's talking about. Well, Kevin Sharp's talking about it. Less than 60 miles from Thin Red Line Games. This is a game designed by Marco Cimino and Fabrizio Vianello, published by Thin Red Line Games. Can I say Thin Red Line Games one more time? Mo's also unboxing Tonkin, the first Indochina War 2nd edition, a game designed by Kim Kanger.
Hello, I'm Kim Kanger.
And published by Legion Wargames. Wargame Reviewer takes a look at Academy Games 878 Vikings. Rob, the strongman of Wargames, is in Kissimmee in his War and Pieces segment, checking out Recon 2019. Mark Herman is unboxing his own game, The Peloponnesian War. This is a solo game designed by Mark Herman, published by GMT. You know, I pre-ordered this game on GMT's P500, and I can't wait to get it, you know? Solo game, Mark Herman, how can you lose? There's a mechanic in this game, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know the game very well, but there's a mechanic in this game that if you're winning, you gotta switch over to the losing side. So if you win, you lose. And if you lose, you win. Mark Herman. Let's see what Dave of the Centurions Review's gotta say.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I'm Dave from the Centurions Review, and this week we're reviewing a fantastic game from GMT Games. It's called Time of Crisis, the Roman Empire in Turmoil from 234 to 284 AD. It's a game where each player represents an important Roman family that is trying to use its influence to manipulate the military, senate, and populace to ensure their family name is remembered for all time. The time period Time of Crisis covers had civil wars, constant leadership changes, barbarian invasions, and never-ending internal strife, so you know it's going to be a good game. Unlike a traditional war game, Time of Crisis is a board game with deck-building concepts and card-driven events. There's plenty of combat though, so this will appeal to both war gamers and regular board gamers. On our YouTube channel, we're doing a first look at 2 Avalon Hill games. The first is the Arab-Israeli Wars, tank battles in the Mideast from 1956 to 1973. The other game is an old game called Naval War. My dad tried out the original prototype 40 years ago, and when this came to market, he bought a copy. He liked it so much. I was 6 years old when I first tried this, and it may be the first non-family, non-miniatures game I ever played. I look forward to seeing you guys on our website and YouTube channel. Thanks and have a good evening.
Edward of Heavy Cardboard is giving you his weekly look ahead, May 5th, 2019. The Professor Riccardo Masini in his vlog, or Warlog 28, On the Table sul tavolo Pacific Tide by Compass Games. DVG, 25% off their website. Use this code. Jan Heinemann, our friend over in Germany, in his Let's Play History, has a teaser video, Fate of Easy, a Fields of Fire playthrough. Welcome to the 4-question segment. Today's guest is Volko Runke. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. The name Volko is not an everyday type of name. Where are your origins from? I mean, Volko Runke. That's it's not very Canadian.
Hi, Dan. Cheers. Question number 1. Runke, my last name, is a fairly normal German name. My father grew up in Germany and emigrated to the United States, so I have a German last name. My mother grew up in Argentina in a German-speaking family, and both my parents wanted to have my first name be an authentic German name, but also be one that Spanish speakers could pronounce easily, just phonetically, preferably ending in an O, like a boy's name. And there aren't that many names like that in German, and in some book of German names they found Volko, which is a real German name, but there are not many of us. So hopefully that's one that's easy for Spanish speakers to pronounce phonetically, as my parents intended. And maybe that works also for Italians, or if not, you can just call me Guido.
With a name like Volko Runke, it sounds very Vikingish. Did you get beaten up in high school a lot, or did you actually do the beating up?
I managed to stay out of the line of fire for the most part. I certainly didn't beat anybody up. The kids at my bus stop thought I was Russian or something, and they called me Volchek, which I guess isn't all that Russian sounding, maybe more Polish. Anyway, I managed to stay away from the guys doing the beating up.
Question number 3. So Volko, you are the father of the coin series. How did that come about?
After I had done Labyrinth for Gene at GIMPY Games, and it did pretty well, I thought I would be able to do whatever topic I wanted. And I was particularly interested, including through my day job, in the study of insurgency and counterinsurgency. And I realized these were really common forms of conflict in today's world, sure, but actually throughout time, these internal conflicts, guerrilla wars and the like. And yet so much of board wargaming was about big nation-on-nation fights like World War II, and I thought that's a really fertile field to plow in as a designer. And I wanted to see how accessible could I make a multiplayer game looking at an insurgency as a multi-factional conflict, which most insurgencies are, and have it be an interesting, fun game to play. And I happened to be, at that point, particularly interested in the story of Colombia, because Colombia in the 1990s and early 2000s was facing this multi-pronged assault on its sovereignty and on its writ throughout the countryside. Left-wing insurgents, right-wing paramilitaries, drug cartels, so-called commercial insurgents, and yet somehow that government withstood all that and effectively actually beat them back and won a counterinsurgency. And I was very interested in how did they do that. And so the game, what became Andean Abyss, tried to tell that story of Colombian counterinsurgency. But I knew there were so many other places I wanted to visit, other continents, so I had already planned to make that volume 1 of a series about counterinsurgency or coin.
Volko, I did some research, and I read somewhere that you created a game called The Hunt for El Chapo. Did your game have any influence on actually apprehending El Chapo?
That's a great question. Kingpin: The Hunt for El Chapo, which I co-designed as a training game to teach analysts about what we can call manhunting. No, it did not play any role in the Mexican apprehension of El Chapo, the third apprehension. He was already in prison for the third time before we ever finished that game. So what that game did is it used the case of the hunt for El Chapo to illustrate enduring principles at play when analysts are trying to help an effort to track down a fugitive or a criminal, particularly one who's really well defended the way El Chapo was. So it was a great historical case, and we used it in the same way that wargamers might be interested in a particular campaign that shows how armored forces interact with infantry forces and artillery and so forth, and you can look at those principles and learn about it and play out those kinds of battles in East Front in World War II. You can do that perhaps in a Soviet NATO conflict in the 1980s, if you like, and so forth. On the Golan Heights, what case are you going to pick? Well, El Chapo was just a great historical case for us to examine the particular interactions that are concerned with fugitives and manhunting.
Volko, the American Civil War, is that a good subject for a coin game?
Maybe you could do something like a two-handed coin for the American Civil War, but I don't know that it would be a good fit, in particular because the Civil War entire is really very much a matter of conventional warfare and mobilizing resources with guerrilla operations, internal conflict, popular support at the regional level really being in there, but secondary to the maneuver of massed armies. And the coin, with its area movement style and very basic combat resolution, is probably not going to simulate that maneuver of great armies very convincingly. That said, if you were to do something like Bleeding Kansas, or something where you have a local region and the partisans and the popular support for that come to the fore, Mosby's Confederacy might work. That might be something, but there are so many other conflicts far less modeled in game than the American Civil War. I don't know why a designer would spend his time going there with coin.
Question number 6. Okay, Volko, between you and me, and probably 1,000 people are going to watch this. You play Euro games, right? Come on, tell me which games you play. Come on.
6? Are we on 6? Euro games, yeah. Just between you and me, oh yeah, I play Euro games. I like to play all kinds of games that, at least that involve the tabletop and mechanical pieces. I won't say that I delve very far into computer games, because I enjoy them, of course, and I enjoy seeing how designers use different mechanics to achieve different effects of play, and I'm trying to keep up with the state of the art as well, to borrow from it. The other practical aspect is I am in local game groups, and very often what they want to play is not a war game, and I join in. I've played many Euro games. I don't know if it's exactly a Euro game. A cooperative game that I really like right now that's not a war game is Black Orchestra, although it has a kind of wartime setting, and if you know the game, you could get some sense maybe why someone like me would be into the interactions modeled in that game.
You seem well read to me. Your favorite philosopher? Who's your favorite philosopher?
I'm going to go with Clausewitz. I deem him a philosopher. He was looking at warfare in its aspects as a human condition and trying to tease apart all of the balances and the dynamics and the questions that pose themselves to strategists and military commanders. And you end up with a intricate and I think complex look at warfare as a human activity through Clausewitz, with, like many philosophers, not necessarily coming up with a practical recipe of what to do about any of it.
You've seen The Godfather Part 1, right? If you were to be any character in that movie, who would you be?
So I think I would be the consigliere. Is that Robert Duvall, his character, sort of the advisor to the family. He's not in the family, but he's in the family. He gets to be the brains behind some of the decisions without being responsible for the decisions themselves. And he gets to enjoy the same lifestyle. I think he survives, doesn't he, into the later movies, Robert Duvall? So that's another good reason to be that character.
Volko, when creating a game, like a coin series game, and there's no mechanic available for a game like that, how do you come and grab, or how do you create a mechanic like that?
First of all, your question touches on, I think, something that's critical to war game design, maybe as opposed to most other kinds of design, and that is you're starting with a like that you're trying to develop mechanics to fulfill that part of the game. And the like that is, what are we simulating? What are we trying to model here? Where are we trying to transport players in history? And so I, of course, have this, the grab bag of playing other games and having designed earlier games and seeing what works to what purpose. And I'm always looking at games in that way. As I mentioned, Euro games, war games, doesn't matter. But the important part of the innovation, I think, is developing some theory about how did this system work in history, like Clausewitz. What were the balances and the interactions, the dynamics? What's really important that we have to include in the game, because we can't include everything. That would be a pain in the ass to play. And then how can we show that mechanically with what's already been done elsewhere, mixed in and modified in a different way, or maybe we need something brand new. And then it's just, okay, how can I have the players representing the roles, the actors in the historical system, how can I have them pursue those ends with what ways and what means? That is to say, what victory conditions, those are the ends. Everybody in life has, and in human endeavor has victory conditions. They have things they're trying to accomplish, incentives. Ways, they have things they do to get there, to make progress against those ends. And means, that is stuff, pieces in the game, resources, units, whatever it is, to which they apply those ways to achieve those ends. So that's how I'm thinking about what's happening in real life. And now I might come up with some gap of, I don't have already a game mechanic that does that. And then I don't know how that happens mentally or psychologically, but then that's the really fun part of design, is how can we show the players doing something that represents that way of acting that the historical players would do. I wish I could give a recipe, but I have none. But that's kind of the really cool part, I think, about historical simulation design, is when you're able to do something that gives that kind of representation, and at least for you as a designer, seems to transport you into that role.
Special Secret Agent section. Volko, UFOs, yay or nay?
UFOs. Nay, if you mean, is there a reason to think that we've seen visitors from beyond Earth? Yay, if you think, are there flying objects that have remained unidentified?
Italian food or?
I give up. Or Italian women?
Tactical or strategic?
Strategic is the most consequential, but tactical is the most human and applicable.
Ancient or modern?
Ancient or modern? Modern is most consequential. Ancient is for escape. In light of the current U.S. government, I've chosen escape.
The Spanish Civil War or the Russian Civil War? Yet.
Spanish Civil War is a little too close to the vastly overgamed Second World War, so I'll go with Russian Civil War.
Robert McNamara or Colin Powell?
Robert McNamara. He thought deeply about his role in history, looking back, reassessed it, and shared that reassessment to the world in a way that was deeply self-critical. And I think that's an important model for any leader who had a big role in the management of policy and war.
You know, I'm editing this and I can't shut up. Why am I always shouting? Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath?
Led Zeppelin. In my high school years, playing around me all the time. Love it.
Clint Eastwood or Richard Burton?
Clint Eastwood or Richard Burton. Totally depends on whether I'm in a new world or old world mood.
Volko, what do you or did you do for a living?
So I spent my career as an analyst for the government, national security analyst, starting with a short period as an analyst for the Army Department, first as a contractor and then as an Army civilian, and then 3 decades in the U.S. intelligence community. I was a military analyst, I was a proliferation analyst, I managed analysis, I was a daily briefer, and I spent about the last decade of my career as an instructor teaching intelligence analysts how to be more effective.
Well, now that we know what you've done or did for a living, now that I've asked these questions, are you going to kill me?
Kill you? No, I already told you. I'm retired.
Why did you create a game called Blackbeard? And you answered, it's a teaching tool for manhunting. How's that normal? I mean, okay, this is what I would expect in a conversation, in a dinner setting, you being invited to a friend's house, you know, and there's some guests you haven't met, so it would go like this. Hi, my name is Dan, and you are? Hi, I'm Volko Ronke, which just that name is a conversation piece into itself, but we go on. Well, nice to meet you, Volvo Ronke. What do you do for a living? I work for the CIA. I teach people how to manhunt. Now, how is that normal? Like what, you're trying to one-up the people or something? I mean, how do we carry on a conversation after that? I don't know. So my question is, how is that normal?
Yeah, how is that normal? So, first of all, great dinner party music. I would like to be at that dinner party. How is that normal? I'm just trying to give you the facts as straight and efficient as I can. So, I answered the question. What's normal? I'm a war gamer. Most board gamers probably don't think war gamers are normal. In fact, a lot of the world probably doesn't think most board gamers are normal. So everybody's into these hobbies for all kinds of different reasons. If you get 20 war gamers together and ask them what they really like about it, you'll if you dig in, I think you'll find things in their background that bring them there that are different for all 20 of them, right? So in this case, Hunt for Blackbeard is indeed kind of a second effort on my part to design a game that leverages the principles of manhunting to look at a historical case, a historical manhunting case, which is exactly what the Hunt for Blackbeard by the Virginians and the Royal Navy in 1718 was. And when I read that story about how Governor Spotswood and Lieutenant Maynard figured out where Blackbeard was going to be, equipped their expedition, and crossed the border of Virginia, probably illegally, to go track down the notorious pirate, and it worked. It really was a story full of all of the elements of manhunting as an intellectual exercise, okay, that I was already familiar with. The first attempt we already talked about, and that was the game Kingpin, Hunt for El Chapo. So Hunt for Blackbeard kind of takes that idea and puts it in a different historical setting. And when I say manhunting, what I mean is not that the games are teaching you how to kick down doors or sail and fire cannon or anything operational like that. The point is, what is it that we're doing analytically when we're trying to figure out what doors do we kick down and when? What do we think Blackbeard is up to? And because we got to find him, we got a limited amount of time before he's just going to sail back to the Caribbean, because hurricane season's coming to an end in November 1718. So where do we send our sloops, and what do we send them with? It's that decision making that's interesting to me, and is what I'm hoping the game Hunt for Blackbeard will bring out. Is that normal? I don't know. Probably not.
What did you do at university as a job? Work in security?
Work in security? No, I never worked in security in the sense of guarding anything. I had typical university jobs, like work in the kitchen of a restaurant or outdoor maintenance. I did government internships at various places. Worked at a small publishing house as an editor, that kind of thing. For a living, it was analysis, and that is in the context typically for an intelligence analyst of some kind of an adversarial situation, enemy superpower, terrorists, a fugitive from justice, whatever it is, and trying to get into that adversary's mind and to better think out the strategy of how to see to your own security and your own interests in that kind of brain-on-brain adversarial setting. And you can see how that would appeal to a wargamer, and in fact how there was then bleed over in terms of what I was doing in that work life and in the hobby pursuit of board wargaming. In terms of being calm, I mean, I was a very nervy young man, I'm sure. I think what you're seeing there is simply wear and tear in old age.
And Volko, designing a game obviously takes a certain intelligence level and a certain logic to work mechanics and all that, which I don't have, just to say. Stephen Hawkins was a genius, obviously, but he liked to party. Can you describe a party night with Volko Runke?
A party night. First of all, beer. Probably my main vice. I like beer. Beer that has the word ale in it, usually. I have a kegerator in the basement, so there's a good amount of it. And yeah, I'm happy already. And then the second element would probably be music, probably unusual music, like Andean flutes or flamenco or balalaika tunes. Well, it would depend on whatever historical setting I was into at that time, probably a game I'm designing, and it would be music meant to reinforce that, because I'm just going to be on a time trip with the beer, and maybe we play a war game.
Volko, your game based on Blackbeard that teaches you techniques of manhunting. I mean, what's your next game? Frou goes to namby-pamby land so you can teach about the adverse effects of LSD? Okay, I just asked an asinine question, so stupid, for laughs. But check out how he answers this.
So, frou and LSD, it might work. It might work very well. And so it's hard to say what the next one would be. But you're really onto something there. And that is, if we want to get a variety of players into and exposed to different strategic concepts and playing with those concepts, why not translate them into a setting where those principles hold, but the setting is something that's either more exciting or maybe more familiar to them. So if the game Root can use, bunnies and kittens to immerse you in insurgency and counterinsurgency, why not? I'm all for that. And maybe that brings some of those players who are originally interested in well, I'm not trying to denigrate anybody here, but let's say they're originally interested in forest animals, and they realize that asymmetrical conflict that involves bureaucracy and gathering popular support and equipping armies and all that stuff is actually very interesting. Well, what's the next topic they might go to? They might go to something that actually involves human beings doing that kind of thing. It's possible, right? And so if there is another setting in which what I think are really, really interesting strategic dilemmas and dynamics around this idea of figuring out what is a fugitive about and how can I get one step ahead of him. If there's something like the story of Blackbeard that I can do next, I mean, and do I have ideas? Yes, but first, of course, Hunt for Blackbeard has to be published, which means pre-orders, and then people have to like it enough for GMT to say, oh yeah, we would do another Hunt for game like that. Volko, what have you got? Thanks, Dan.
Ciao. Trafalgar Games and Austerlitz 1805. Austerlitz 1805 is a war game where the French army commanded by Napoleon Bonaparte confronts the Third Coalition armies, the Russian army under Tsar Alexander I, and the Austrian army under Emperor Francis I. And what you get with this game is that beautiful box, firstly. Second, a counter sheet for both armies, 2 marker sheets, 4 maps, 2 deployment maps, 2-player raid combat table and terrain cards, introductory scenario, and 2 6-sided dice. Pan Games Friendly Mayhem since 1977. May 17th to the 19th. This year's theme is Clockwork. Con is happening in Ottawa, Canada at the Rideau Curling Club. And get more Canadian than that. A game where men and women hold brooms and scream, hard, hard. ChimeraCon. Get epic games on the table. ChimeraCon 2019, the venue, the Teachers Club, 36 Parnell Square West, Dublin 1. That's in Ireland. The date is Saturday, May 11th, 2019 from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. And they're saying here that this is a day of war games and board games with a focus on the large, long or complex games that are not often seen in other Irish conventions. Games such as Here I Stand, Mega Civilization, Advanced Squad Leader, and monster war games like It Never Snows or The Longest Day. ChimeraCon. 3 Moves Ahead, a podcast about strategy and war games. Episode 468. Same thing, different place. Imperator. Steel Divisions 2, Sengoku Jidai. pike and shot are what they're talking about. Another week, another show. Thank you to my supporters. Think of becoming a supporter, and I'll see you next week.
Maestro Pancaldi.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you an excerpt of a future Dice Tower war game show that I do, obviously. Most of you probably don't watch that, but it's I laugh at myself. It's ridiculous, man. I don't know what I do. It's like an out-of-body experience. I look at myself, I laugh, and it's a caricature. There you go. Get out of there! So in this episode, what I'm doing is I'm trying to sell or trying to showcase lock and load games, right? I'm in the galaxy. I'm doing a month run of the galaxy of lock and load. Next month is another company. The month after that is another company. It makes it interesting. Instead of doing game by game, I do company by company and show what the company is all about. And so what I've done is I've come up with two characters. One is Paw. And the other guy is Little Nebelwerfer. That's where I got the name for the UVA spot. And I hope he keeps doing that because I find it interesting. And Little Nebelwerfer is an idiot. And I'm the father. Hey, whatever. Get off the beaches in Normandy in France. You can fight in Berlin. Anywhere. But Pa, I don't want to play with you anymore. You're always losing. Well, my little Nebelwerfer, no problem. You can play all those games with the module, the solo module, for all their tactical games. You can play alone. But I don't want to play alone anymore. Shut up. There you get a small guy. You know, I'm almost abusive. I don't know. I just, it happens. I let it go. I edit it, I look at it, I laugh, I have a drink, I laugh some more, and I send it out. And it seems to work you well to beat your opponent, which is you. You win and you lose. You can't lose. I mean, you can't win. You're probably saying, oh my God, all these rules, charts, books, cards. Hey, relax. You're going to be playing this for like 20 years. Because it's tactical and boots to the ground, you play a single man. And it's like an RPG, man. You can create stuff like, you go to the supermarket. You need to get bread for your soldiers. Side quest. And there's see, that bread thing just came up because Eurogamers and meeples and tile placement, how to get wood, how to get sheep, how to get bricks. You know, you gotta get bread for your soldiers. Yeah, I gotta drag them in somehow. You know, I have to be animated when I want to sell my war game thing to the Dice Tower, to the Euro people, because mostly it's Euro people that, I mean, Eurogamers that watch the Dice Tower. I'm the anomaly in this whole thing, man. So, you know, I'm animated. I try to grab them in, you know, like the mob. Heroes of the Falklands, where, get this, in 1982, Argentina invades Britain. This really happened in the Malvinas. What were they thinking? Well, they probably thought they were invading like the island of Titicaca. Britain's got allies, man. But anyways, the Argentinians, they have this missile called the Exocet. You know, I get excited, and with all that, so that's what I do. Every week, every Thursday, I put out a 2.5, 3-minute video on Euro games, trying to sell, you know, as the Frenchmen say here, sell la salade, vendre ma salade, sell their salad. I don't know, that doesn't make any sense, but anyways. And I try to grab him in. It's like, you know, hey, try this game. This is cool, you know. And once you try a war game, you know, hopefully you're hooked, you know. So that's it. You know what? I really appreciate you guys watching because, you know, I'm living vicariously through me. Yeah, whatever. So, thank you, and I'll see you next week. Okay, I'm going to continue. I got something else here. I tie flies, fishing flies, Atlantic salmon flies, right? So there are expensive feathers you got to buy, and they're expensive, right? Anyways, I wanted to take some lessons from a guy nearby, and I call him up and I say, hey, you know, let's set up a day where I can take lessons. He invites me over, so I go to his place. And so I walk in, and this guy is in a wheelchair. You know, he's missing a leg. Big deal. Right, so anyways, you know, we're talking about flies and techniques of tying flies. And anyways, he pulls out this feather, this bustard feather, right? And each feather is about $50, $60 per feather, right? And when you tie a fly, you need a set. So you're talking about $120 for 2 feathers, but whatever. Anyways, when he pulls out that bustard feather, I know it's a bustard feather. So this is what comes out of my mouth. I said, hey, man, that must have cost you an arm and a leg. I swear. I can't make it up. That's what it is.